Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heart to Heart YouTube channel. I have my friend Latisse here. She's actually one of my co-workers. Latisse, say hey.
Hey, YouTube. How you doing?
She is one of my co-workers, but when I tell you, when we're at work and we're discussing different things, we have really, truly developed a friendship, wouldn't you say?
Definitely.
And some of the conversations that we have on night shift.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. We talk about a little bit of everything. And just to give you a little bit of a background, we both are registered nurses. I won't say where we work, but we are both registered nurses. And the population that we care for is a population that face a lot of challenging situations and circumstances. And so today's video is going to talk about mental illness. And before we actually start conversing back and forth, I want to give you some information that I came across on the National Alliance on Mental Illness website. So again, and I will post the link at the bottom of this video, but the information that I'm going to give to you is coming from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And so when we think of mental illness in the African American population, this is something that a lot of people do not take time to think about, discuss, and actually respond appropriately. It's something that we kind of keep it hush. We don't want to talk about it. So on the website, it makes mention that African Americans can experience more severe forms of mental health conditions due to needs that are being unmet. The most basic, when we think of, especially from a nursing standpoint, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, being able to have food, water, the most basic needs, shelter, the most basic needs, how those needs are not being met. And so on the website, it makes mention, according to the Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health, African Americans are 20% more likely to experience mental health problems. 20% more likely to experience mental health problems. And some of the most common mental health disorders include major depression, ADHD, suicide, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I look at those disorders, the most common ones, most of them having something to do with something that can stress you out, with the major depression, with suicide, post-traumatic stress disorder. So it says on here, African Americans are more likely to experience certain factors that increase the risk for developing mental condition, such as homelessness. It says the African American population makes up 40% of the homeless population. 40%. I don't know about y'all, but that is a pretty high number. Yes. That is a pretty high number. It says that African Americans are more exposed to violence. And so, and the risk of developing mental health condition such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and that the African American children are more likely to be exposed to violence. So when we think of mental health, the lack of information and misunderstanding about mental health is, and they mention about how mental health is something that is not talked about in the African American community. Oftentimes people view a mental health disorder as a sign of weakness. And for some, from religious, and again, I've said before on several different videos, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. From a religious standpoint, sometimes it's viewed mental health disorder as a punishment from God, when that it could be so far from the truth. It's not a punishment from God. It's just simply one, it could be hereditary. It could be a part of the genes and what the person is made of, the chemical imbalances. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with being punished by God.
And sometimes people are on drugs that sometimes also alter their mental state.
And changes the chemical properties in the body, the mind.
Definitely.
And makes alterations.
Definitely.
Every chemical reaction in the body is a direct result of what we put into our body. And when we're putting harmful things into the body, and it's making alterations to our mind, the chemical reactions that are going on, which can turn around and lead to mental health disorders. And so that doesn't have anything to do with being punished by God. It's just simply of, science and the chemical breakdown. It talks about how many African Americans have trouble recognizing the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions. And we're not going to really go through a list of diagnoses and discuss the signs and symptoms, but one thing we do want to talk about is just really being in tune with who you are and know where you stand, and being in tune with your emotions when you're feeling sad, such as depression. It makes mention in here that when people are depressed, they just say, oh, it's the blues and I'll get through it. But if you find yourself, oh, this is the blues and it's 6 months in,
you definitely need to speak with someone about that. There's no shame. I mean, people go through different situations, circumstances in their life, whether it's a loss of a loved one, a job loss, just various things that affect each person differently. But divorce, definitely.
Because just loss in itself,
within itself, can be something that's hard for you to cope with alone. But as Miranda mentioned, if it's something that you feel like, hey, this is going on, for an extended period of time, definitely reach out for help. Maybe speak to a family member that maybe could direct you into resources that can just help you address that problem. The first thing is just really just admitting that, there may be, an issue here. I'm having a hard time, and acknowledging that. And I feel like once you're able to acknowledge that, then you're on the right track to maybe getting the help that you need to get through that situation.
And being able to move forward. Being able to move forward. And that's where a lot of times people get stuck at, is not even acknowledging it. And then family, from stories that I've heard, just over time, there are families that know they have a family member that is dealing with depression, they're dealing with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and they don't want other people to know, where it puts everybody at risk. Because one, by you being quiet when your family member has PTSD, when your family member has bipolar, when your family member has schizophrenia, and they just suddenly explode on someone, and the person that doesn't know that they have that disorder, they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know how to respond appropriately. They don't know what to expect. And it puts everybody at risk because, for one, they didn't know. And, as a family member, you're keeping it quiet because you may feel embarrassed, ashamed, or something to that effect, when everybody just needs to be educated on what the diagnosis is, what are the signs and symptoms of the diagnosis, and when this person is displaying those signs and symptoms, how as you as a family member can help them through it. Because sometimes a person may have bipolar, they're getting mad, they're getting upset, and you on the outside, whether you know or you don't know, there are things that you can do in your actions if you're arguing with them that can escalate it even more. And when you're dealing with a person that has a psych disorder, you're putting them at risk for harming themselves. You're putting yourself at risk from them harming you, because they're not able to control their emotions. They're not able to control the signs and symptoms that come from that particular diagnosis.
That is so true. Definitely just being honest, with those around that person, because sometimes if you can intervene early, like you see, hey, this person's been acting a little differently, or, this happened, this situation happened. Like Miranda said, sometimes to de-escalate before things just get out of control.
Right.
Just kind of make mention to those who are kind of in that person's circle, so that maybe you guys can proactively do something like, no, okay, we realize this person has this condition, and, maybe we need to check, make sure that they're taking their meds,
right,
or just support, just having that conversation.
Right.
Like Miranda said, just knowledge about a condition. It's definitely helpful. Like you said, sometimes you get in situations where if you know what's going on, you're better able to resolve that situation
and handle it appropriately.
Definitely.
And you have to come from a caring standpoint.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to come from a caring standpoint to let them know, hey, this is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And we're here to help you. We're here to support you. We're here to be there for you. And you just have to really take time to, when you see someone that is acting either outside of their normal, or acting outside of what should be considered normal.
Right.
And acknowledging that, and if you see certain characteristics of depression or anger, a lot of people, when they're angry, it has to do with hurt, or it has to do with some type of mental illness where they're not able to control their emotions. And so acknowledging that, especially as a family member, acknowledging that, helping your family member get the help that they need. Don't contribute in a negative way. Seeking help so that you can help in a positive way and come from a caring standpoint, a very genuine standpoint, a non-judgmental standpoint.
Absolutely. If you come off as being a judgy person, people are reluctant to open up to you.
Right.
And I think in dealing with others, just in general, we all need to just be a little compassionate, be a little patient, be a little empathetic.
Right.
But also just be positive. And when I say that, just maybe trying to be a part of the solution.
And not a part of the problem.
So just keep those things in mind, maybe when, discussing a situation with someone, and hopefully, that'll turn out
right.
the best.
Right. Because again, there are a lot of African Americans, male and female, that are dealing with mental illness that need to seek help, or if they have sought help, need to be compliant with the medications, and they need family and friends to be supportive of what's going on with them. And don't hide it from other people, because you're disadvantaging the person that has the mental illness. You're disadvantaging yourself if they decide to explode one day, and you're disadvantaging others that may not know because they don't know how to handle that person.
That's right.
So again, I just want to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I really appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content in this video, please share. I know y'all know somebody that needs this video, so go ahead and share it on your social media. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you pull me up in a search for YouTube, type in Miranda Heart to Heart. Again, subscribe, Miranda Heart to Heart. You guys have a lovely day. Until my next video, love yourselves and love each other. Take care. Bye.